Hey y'all, my name is Samantha Avila. Our first question is, why am I interested in participating in the LA County Arts Ed Collective's Youth Advisory Council? So the first thing that came into my mind is that one of the reasons why I was interested in applying to this fellowship is because when I was younger, I was not exposed to arts in school. Primarily because my school districts couldn't really afford it, or the school itself couldn't afford it. And if we did have art classes, it would usually come out of my teacher's budget. And as someone who is heavily involved in art and specifically social justice theater, I know that if I wasn't involved in theater, my parents or any other family members wouldn't have carved out the time or money to go see my performances. With that, my main goal is to make art more accessible for low-income families. Our next question is, what skills and experiences will I bring to the Youth Advisory Council? So a couple of things that I do is that I teach Black and Brown elementary school kids, predominantly from ages 5 to 13 in the city of Pomona. And in my lessons, I want to teach children a higher education and understanding of their culture and heritage. With that, I teach children about historical figures and local legends, such as Maya Angelou, Frida Kahlo, Dolores Huerta, Juana Martinez Neal, and many other social justice leaders. And I also incorporate social justice issues such as mental health, the Black Lives Matter movement, and environmental justice. A particular moment that I am most proud of that I demonstrated reliability is when I first started working at the Dawes Center of Arts in downtown Pomona. Margaret, the director of the center, started appointing me to teach as an assistant for one of my colleagues, Seth. And during this process, I would have to confirm several dates and times and locations of elementary schools that I have to work throughout the weeks. And I would be traveling to at least 2 or 3 elementary schools a day for 5 days a week. And obviously that's a lot to remember because there's so many elementary schools in Pomona alone. But I would always write everything down, all to the last detail, and I would always write it down on my calendar and in my phone, and always triple checking everything and confirming with Margaret and Seth. And I knew at that point, Margaret was able to rely on me, and Seth did too. I was always punctual, and I still am. And whenever I go to elementary schools, I'm always over ecstatic to work with the kids and to help them out in their art activities. Another example when I demonstrated teamwork was when I started teaching at the after school program at the SAE. And the SAE stands for the School of Arts and Enterprise, and it's in Pomona as well. I worked with 6th to 8th graders, and the theme that we have chosen to showcase in the after-school program was to discuss drama. And it's such a big surprise for performing arts middle school, but they decided to make their main theme drama. In my group, we wanted to specialize in world drama, which was really interesting, but it was also a big topic, but I was up to do it. And I was excited. I was doing my research on the world or the global issues happening right now. But as weeks pass and after several writing exercises I've done with the kids, we decided to do something else. And they wanted to talk about homelessness, a great subject to talk about. And I was all for it. I was here for the stories and the voices to be heard. And at the end of the day, I felt that's all that mattered. I wanted their voices to be heard in their pieces. However, there was another group in the same program as me that was struggling on what topic they wanted to discuss about. And they decided to do something different. And one of my colleagues, Celeste, was struggling with the same issue with their group. And they wanted to discuss about unemployment rates and incarcerated folks who couldn't get jobs. So Celeste and I decided to actually combine our groups together and create a play that surrounded incarcerated trans and queer folks and veteran folks of color who were predominantly the ones who were experiencing houselessness. Celeste and I worked together to collect stories and to be inclusive and sensitive to all stories at all times. We worked late nights, early mornings, working lesson plans, activities and exercises, and we would always journal about our experiences. We wanted to make sure and to remind that in our group that we are always encouraging one another. Encouraging one another to be an ensemble. And the biggest thing that I learned with this experience is how trust was so powerful. Celeste and I had to trust each other and work with one another for this play to be successful. And it's finally opening next week, and we're both really excited for the performance. And I know it's going to be super duper successful because our teamwork was so strong. All right, and our next question is, how have the arts impacted your life? Well, the arts have made a huge impact in my life because as a queer Latinx artist, I find myself creating art for my people and folks who are less privileged than me or folks that look like me. Art has taught me how to discover my identity. I love all forms of art. Particularly, I love playwriting, writing spoken words, directing, but I love acting. In these various forms of art, they all have taught me about myself. In playwriting, I was able to write stories about myself and about my families, but through another character's eyes, which was really cool. I was able to have a voice in all my characters, and it was always fascinating to see how I can write about my stories and my experiences through a bird's eye view. In spoken words, I feel powerful. In this particular art, it has helped me to be vulnerable, to tell a beautiful story in an artistic way. And it has shaped my voice. This art relieves pressure and thoughts that run through my brain every day, and it helped me to create art in an incredibly holistic way. In directing, I find myself learning that it's okay to have more questions than answers, and making mistakes is completely okay. A particular moment that led me to believe this was that one of my students was having trouble in making choices, and I had to remind them that there's no right or wrong answer or wrong choices, and all choices and answers are valid. And this actually validated me in my personal life, that it is okay to make mistakes, because directing taught me that if you always concentrate on wanting everything to be perfect all the time and not allowing yourself to make more mistakes, there will be no improvement. And I would rather to spend my time improving than perfecting. And last but not least, I believe that acting has single-handedly changed my life. I learned something different from every character I played. And I feel like this is where my identity has been discovered in each of my characters, and my identity becomes transparent in every production that I've been in, from Juliet in Romeo and Juliet to Anna in Real Women Have Curves. I listen to my characters and their wants and needs in their stories, and each character has a voice, and it's my responsibility to respect and give them their stories justice. And this art form has taught me how that my vulnerability is one of my strengths instead of my weaknesses. And I believe that it gave me a brave space where I can share stories. And acting has definitely taught me how to see every perspective without judgment. Our next question is, describe how I have demonstrated leadership among my peers or in my community. So I am currently graduating from Cal Poly Pomona as a theater major. And in our theater department, there is a small community of students that want to work in other communities to create art. And in this community of students that we have in the department, I recently have assembled all of them and created a group where we're able to work together and to share opportunities and events and workshops that we're all eligible to attend. Every month, I set up a time and place to meet, to catch up, to practice self-care, and to release any stress that we have been experiencing throughout the month. And it's very healing. And in all honesty, I'm very proud of myself for gathering such a wonderful and inspiring artist to continue into improving their art and creating art after we graduate. And in our meetings, I organize topics to discuss, plays, books, movies to read or see, discounts on local galleries or theater company shows, and much more that we all can be accessible towards. In this group, we demonstrate how community starts within our peers, and it provides a brave space for our graduated and currently graduating students to be involved when school is done. Our last question is, describe your interest or experience in working with a positive difference in the quality of life in my community. So I want to make a difference I want to make a positive difference to improve my life in my community. And I want you to have the opportunity in creating art and creating change through art. I fight for inclusivity, accessibility, and equity for all. The time to change is now. And personally speaking, an experience that reminded me of why teaching youth is so important is when I was teaching a lesson of Frida Kahlo. And so many brown girls and boys have never heard of the name. And I was so excited to teach them about an iconic figure in their culture. And when I began to tell them that today's art activity was creating self-portraits of themselves, their faces lit up like a light bulb. And they were so excited to see and to draw themselves and as they see themselves, just like Frida did. Some kids drew themselves as queens or superstars or the president. And yet it was so inspiring and so empowering to see how limitless kids' imaginations are. And my goal is to exercise that and exercise their creativity by positively reinforcing them that they are enough. I want to create an environment where youth's voice will be heard in our community. With this, I know that my combination of knowledge, skills, motivation, and compassion will make a positive difference in my community and all other communities.